Ugh. And good morning. I don't know why it switched to that view first, but here we go. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So a thing happened.
Yeah. Yeah. A Rubicon crossing type of thing happened.
So Donald Trump was indicted yesterday. He was when he actually went and surrendered himself and entered his plea of not guilty, which is the only move, really. It's the only move he had. There were some possibilities that, frankly, were never going to happen, but were entertaining to kind of theory craft on, like the possibility that DeSantis is the governor of Florida, where Trump is resident, because let's remember, he's being charged with state crimes.
No, it was me. I was messing with the thing. I didn't realize it was going to go bing bong when it happened.
Stop touching things.
Well, I'm trying to plug another thing up, but
okay.
Governor DeSantis
could have, DeSantis could have said, hey, I will not allow you to simply come into my state and take one of my citizens. And that would have started something very interesting with state police back and forth. Honestly, I don't know how that would have gone, but there's been quite a bit of theory crafting on other shows about that. It's about that potentiality, which has not come to pass. Now, the title of the episode today is the Passion of the Donald Trump. Hey, there's Legion.
Well, look, let's make sure that we're clear, okay? The crux of all this is 34 felonies. Sounds terrible.
Potentially 136 years in prison sentences.
So, super long story short, the reason why there's all these felonies, well, in the state of New York, if you commit business fraud to cover up another crime, that elevates that to a felony. And in a vacuum, that actually makes sense. Committing crimes to hide other crimes should increase the severity of the legal jeopardy that you're in. However, you have to have an underlying crime.
Right.
All right? Obstruction of justice
excuse me,
should only, like, if you ever I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but I happen to have some experience with what happens when you get charged with obstruction of justice without an underlying crime. There has to be an underlying crime. And we're not real sure what the underlying crime is. There is this, there's basically an implication that there is potential tax fraud and potential campaign finance violations. Well, here's the deal.
Those things are not alleged.
Well, here's the deal, though. Okay? They're not part of the criminal indictment. And let's be real. If they thought that they could get Donald Trump on either one of those, they would just charge him with one of those.
Exactly. They would try to Al Capone him.
Exactly.
Right. Now, what we're looking at, like Cameron's example is a great one. This is akin to a police officer walking up to you, right? You're in a park, you're watching your kids play on the playground, you're sitting there just keeping an eye on the kids. Maybe you got your phone in your hand and you're taking some pictures of your kids because they're your kids. And a police officer walks up and says, "Hey man, let me see your ID." Like,
what's your probable cause?
Why?
Excuse me?
Why? What crime do you suspect me of committing? And then he immediately throws handcuffs on you and says, "You're under arrest for obstruction." Now, that sounds like a bizarre overreach and just kind of a theoretical, hypothetical example. It happens all the time. Police love to jump from, "Let me see your ID. No, you have no legal authority to compel me to show you my ID without probable cause. Okay, you're now going to be arrested and incarcerated for the crime of obstruction." Obstructing what? Right? And so cases like this get brought and dismissed all the time. It's actually quite rare for a mere obstruction case to go all the way to a conviction. What it really is a convenient way for the revenue collection agencies that are known as police forces to just nick you for some money. So what's happening is GCM says he has that exact video up right now on his YouTube page. I've seen those. I've seen him get hit with those as well.
Well, it's a high pressure tactic. Most of us don't have Donald Trump. Excuse me. Most of us don't have Donald Trump money. We cannot afford to hire lawyers that charge $5,000 an hour to defend us. And I love our justice system, hate our justice system, whatever. One thing that does seem to be true, if you have money, you seem to be able to get extra mobestus justice.
You know, like Uncle Bobo used to say, you know, how much justice can a poor man get? As much as he can afford.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, if you're ever charged with a crime and all you can get is the public defender, take the public defender. But if you can afford a criminal defense attorney, you want the criminal defense attorney. It's like there's a reason why they charge thousands and thousands of dollars, because they're good at their job, right? And speaking of attorneys, Donald Trump's attorneys, like, they've made it very clear. Plea deal. What for? If they thought there was even the tiniest chance that these charges could stick, and I'm not saying Donald Trump is guilty, I'm saying if there was the tiniest chance they thought these charges could stick,
right,
they would go to Donald and they would say, "You really want to look at doing a plea deal here?" That's what they would tell him, because again, that's what you pay criminal defense attorneys for. But no, nobody thinks these charges, people that don't like Donald Trump, other than like some morons on Twitter, don't think...
the number of people who are actually defending the charges is a very, very low number. The charges are okay. There's 34 counts on the indictment.
It's really a couple of counts that they've split into 34 counts.
It's hardly even that. It reads more like, and we're not going to read through the whole indictment here. Go to LawTube for that. For the purposes of today's conversation, we will assert that X is true, and you can accept that for the sake of the conversation or not. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. If anything, my track record on predictions and claims is that I tend to be more right than I thought I was when I said the thing. like predictions on how bad Obamacare was going to go or how disastrous a president Joe Biden could be. Alex says they may very well be doing that, and Trump may have said no. I assume, Alex, that you're talking about
a plea deal,
the plea deal situation. Honestly, I strongly doubt that any of Trump's attorneys have counseled him to do a plea deal, because it's such a thin case. It's almost literally just the same sentence 34 times. The individual charges are that similar.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of speeding, and you were speeding for 5 minutes, and the cop followed you and literally wrote you a ticket for every minute you were speeding. But like, well, at this point you hit 78 miles an hour, so there's that ticket. It's pretty thin.
Well, and the charges in toto, it goes from, for one, Trump hasn't been a New York resident for some time. He's been a Florida resident for some time. And Legion points out 34 Class E felonies, the lowest class felony. And so what you actually have is the inciting action is that he paid hush money to somebody to get, basically to convince them not to speak ill against him. And that is not a crime.
Yeah, one of my
coworkers. Keep in mind, the original action was not a crime. So then you've got the development where some lawyers and prosecutors make the argument that because he's a businessman and these expenses should have been reported in a certain way for tax purposes, for financial records purposes, etc., he's committed the misdemeanor of mishandling finances. And then the statute of limitations on that is 2 years, right? If he committed a crime as alleged, it was done in 2016, the statute of limitations has passed. So then they push it a little harder to try and get it to convert it to a felony, because with that felony, which alleges that the individual misdemeanors were related to campaign finance
and tax fraud, by the way. They've got that one in the hopper as well.
No, that is not currently alleged, so it's not part of the indictment argument.
Oh no! I know it's not part of
that. It's a potential future charge is completely unrelated to what I'm explaining.
I apologize.
So stay with me.
Okay.
So then they've taken the misdemeanor whose statute of limitations has passed substantially and artificially conflated it by prescribing intent whose evidence does not exist in order to make it a campaign finance question. Remember, a candidate, unlike any other person, can donate any amount they like to their own campaign. So in order for it to be a campaign finance issue, they have to make the argument that he did it with the explicit intent to defraud people. To defraud people for the purposes of tampering with an election, the 2016 election, to be clear.
Right.
That is a felony with a 5-year statute of limitations, which, I might add, has also passed.
Well, you know how they're working backwards to get here, right? They're saying because he made regular payments to Cohen, they're trying to drag this all the way forward into 2018, saying, well, technically Cohen was still on his payroll all the way up to 2018. Be like, wait a minute, you mean his lawyer, who was expensive and a dirtbag, by the way, right? Yeah. His expensive dirtbag lawyer kept sending him invoices and Trump kept paying him?
Yeah, that's another great point. Even in the wake of how thin all of their charges are, your key witnesses are a porn star who we know lied about the affair. And I say that with 100% certainty. I can guarantee you with 100% metaphysical certitude that Stormy Daniels lied about the affair with Donald Trump. I can guarantee that because she first claimed that they had sex while he was married, and she then later claimed that that statement was false. One of those statements is a lie, necessarily. So we still don't know, honestly, whether Donald Trump had sex with Stormy Daniels. And we may never know that for certain. I have my deep suspicions.
If I had to guess.
If I had to guess, if I had to lay money on it, I would say Donald Trump probably boned the blonde bombshell that looks like every other thing he's ever put his dick in.
Yeah, if I had to lay money on it, I'd say Donald Trump also laid money on it.
Yeah.
And then that's the other thing, though.
But
Cohen...
your two-star witnesses are a porn star and a liar.
A guy that's been convicted.
A dirtbag and a perjurer.
Yeah, a guy that, he's not a credible witness. Like, I'm not at all worried about the Manhattan jury thing that other people are pointing out, because it has to actually get to trial. And this is so paper thin. Even people that don't like Trump, right? Even people that have problems with Trump. Like, do you know that even Van Jones was like, this is kind of a weak-looking case to me, And then Brian Kemp was on WSB a couple of days ago in the morning doing an interview, and I'm going to paraphrase him, but he basically said, so yeah, the president and I have had our problems. But obvious political hatchet job is obvious political hatchet job, right? So even people that have real reasons to be antagonistic toward Trump, like Eric Erickson, for example, who has said many, many times that Trump needs to just go away. The time of Trump has passed. But even Eric Erickson is like, yeah, these are paper-thin charges, y'all. You got to have an underlying crime to make any of this stick. And they don't have an underlying crime, right? So you put all that together, and it all hinges on a guy that's been convicted of perjury. Because the Stormy Daniels stuff is here nor there. That's really a distraction. If they were to try and pull her into this, I'm not real sure how much utility she would offer legally. This whole thing would revolve around Michael Cohen. No, I swear, what happened with Donald Trump is we were basically the Sopranos, but with a fake tan. And I was that lawyer. I was a piece of shit for the first 45 years of my life. But
I'm not now.
I'm
totally cool now.
I'm totally not doing this to get some kind of redemption because I've been disbarred and am currently a convicted felon myself. No. Don't think the most obvious thing is true.
Well, like Legion points out, yes, Stormy Daniels just lost big. Just yesterday, it was determined that she now owes Donald Trump an additional $176,000 or $78,000 in legal fees, on top of the other $500,000 in legal fees that she already owes him from other cases that she lost related to this exact series of charges.
It's pretty good. Trusting Michael Cohen is almost like trusting a former meth addict to give you security advice.
Yeah. So
I feel like he might be having a dig at us too. He might be having a bit of a go.
Now let's pull back to the obvious political hit job part of this.
Right.
So we called the episode "The Passion of the Donald Trump" after something that our buddy Mario said in the infamous thread, which is infamously secure. But it just happens comically to be the case that that Marjorie Taylor Greene made this comparison yesterday.
Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. There have been many people throughout history that have been arrested and persecuted by radical, corrupt governments. And it's beginning today in New York City. And I just can't believe it's happening. But
So she's gotten a lot of flack online for that statement, right? In fact, this article is from Raw Story. Green told RSBN host Brian Glenn that Trump's arraignment in connection to hush money payments to a porn star put him in good company.
I don't want to be in the same company as Nelson Mandela.
Right.
You want to talk about whitewashing. Is it offensive to say Nelson Mandela was whitewashed? I'm trying to be offensive. I'll come up with a new term. Because if you're a psychotic communist... Yeah, no. Look... Anyhow, but yes, Nelson Mandela is not who you want to be compared to. Let's just stick with the Jesus.
And forget about Mandela. The point I wanted to get to with this, it is a common rhetorical device by the painfully illiterate left to compare everything to the Nazis, everything to Hitler. Trump is Hitler. Is like
he's Cheeto Hitler.
He's Cheeto Hitler because okay, Hitler did anything, and you did something similar. Ergo, you're the same person.
Yeah, Hitler
For example,
drank water.
Hitler drank water. Ergo, Donald Trump is going to gas the special people. No, that's not how things work. Now, if you want to say that these two people are similar in a particular way, to say that Donald Trump and Jesus Christ were both persecuted by government corruption and a psychotically insane mob mentality. Basically, Christ was the original cancel culture. That is not the same as saying Donald Trump healed the blind. I mean, because we all know, those of us who've been paying attention, we all know, Mr. Beast healed the blind, not Donald Trump. But Legion.
Look.
Your Honor, motion to declare mistrial. Juror number 7 cannot speak English and is cooking chicken in the courtroom.
Keep going. Because I have something I want to add to this.
So to make the comparison between Trump and Christ in relation to the illicit and corrupt persecution and prosecution of both men by a clearly corrupt government, guys, D.A. Bragg, he ran on, "I'ma get Trump." Not, "I intend to pursue the explicitly suspected and known crimes of Donald Trump to a just conclusion." No. "I'ma get him no matter what." He ran on, "I'm happy to make shit up to get Donald Trump." And we know from just recent history that the DNC is committed, the entire Democrat National Committee. If you have ever voted for a Democrat, even if you got better and do better now, you've ever voted for a Democrat before, you have at least inadvertently supported the existence of that party. And the DNC has become an absolute anti-life party. Part of that includes the targeted political assassination of their political opponents. This trial this conviction, this indictment, has nothing at all to do with the question of justice and the law. I know this because not only did D.A. Bragg run on, "I'ma get him," D.A. Bragg downgrades legitimate felony charges like murder by throwing somebody in front of a train in New York the majority of his cases, 52% of cases brought before DA Bragg are downgraded. He's one of those Soros-funded DAs that's going out of his way to make all crimes committed by anything other than a straight white conservative voting male to be not crimes. Buddy, when the Ahmaud Arbery case happened and we watched BLM come down here and bully a half a dozen prosecutors into recusing themselves until they could find a prosecutor with racial political motivation to pursue a case that had no standing, I said back then that one of the things that the DNC is working on is to make it so that all non-white people who are not male are allowed to commit crimes with impunity. They're actively seeking to create a legal system where you can only be charged with a crime if you have committed a crime and are a white male. And they're going to push that further so that it is not even required that there be a crime alleged.
Just white male. Yeah,
right? That's what they've been doing. When I made that claim during the Ahmaud Arbery, not even the trial, when the incident first occurred, and we saw the BLM protesters come and bully and ruffian the flippin' prosecutors to craft the outcome of a trial that never should have happened based on the evidence presented by the arresting officers and the prosecutors. That should never have happened. When I made the claim that the objective was to just criminalize whiteness, I thought I was being hyperbolic and making an outrageous claim. I honestly did not realize at the time how right I was.
So, and going back to some of the stuff that's been in the chat and the fact that this happens to coincide with it being Easter week. Yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene's not the only one who's made the point that, like, man, you know who else was arrested a few days before Easter? It's a good line, okay? But I'll say this. Anybody that thinks Donald Trump is going to get Epsteined in jail, I'm going to say the odds of that are low. And then as far as him being convicted, and Alex pointed out earlier in the chat, they convicted a kid for memes. They did, but they were able to bring in some legitimately racist trolling that this same kid had done in the past. Still a bullshit conviction.
It is.
Okay. But they were able to color the case with some racist trolls from this kid's past. Nobody knew who the kid was until after he got convicted, and he cannot afford Donald Trump level attorneys.
And that's the most important distinction between the two right there.
Is that Donald Trump can afford the attorneys. Now, here's the thing.
He was a little guy. They went after a little guy so they could set precedent.
Now, here's the thing. The backlash, and granted, the election is still, a ways away, right?
Yep. Year and a half.
But the backlash has been awful. Okay. And when I say awful, I was on the fence about whether or not Donald Trump was the best choice going forward. And I'm going to echo something I've heard other people say. And I don't care if he's the best choice going forward. You hate Donald Trump so much that this is how you're going to react? Well, hold on. Oh, I've got a second one for you. You make me wish I had like 14 more hands. No, so sorry, Trump's the guy, okay? I don't care if Trump, I don't know, let's say has multiple strokes and obviously has signs of dementia. Trump's my fucking guy because you guys hate him this much. You're willing to put the country through a potential constitutional crisis just to throw this at him, just to try and incite people like me to violence, because that's what this is. This is
we
not,
haven't even gotten to that
This
yet.
is not even an insult to Trump exactly. This is an offense to you and me and him and everybody else. And I really was on the edge of saying, maybe it's time to move on from Trump. But nah, get fucked. Seriously. I mean, like running backwards through a cornfield without lube. Get fucked.
So, and yeah, Cameron points that out, and this is something that they've been talking about on the Daily Wire and on Tim Pool, and I'm pretty sure Crowder said something about it too. We have this article from the Post Millennial. All New York Police Department officers ordered to patrol in uniform and prepare for mobilization following Trump indictment. Basically, a big part of what's going on here is, well, January 6th just doesn't have the weight that it may once have had, because now even the most coddled leftists are being confronted with, oh, no, there's no tinfoil hat speculation. We have guaranteed dispositive evidence of federal involvement, of federal agents actively inciting the activity that occurred at the Capitol. We have the video evidence that shows that all of the violence happened on the opposite side of the building from where protesters not entered the building, were invited and encouraged into the building by uniformed police officers, not even incognito agent provocateurs, etc. The whole narrative of the January 6th situation is crumbling entirely. And so they desperately need a conservative, violent movement, because they desperately need to hide things like the May 29th insurrection, when leftists stormed the White House and set the president's church on fire. Right? They desperately need to hide the several $1 billion of property damage that was done by their voters. They desperately need to hide the dozens of people that were murdered in the street by BLM activists in the course of their mostly peaceful but fiery protests, none of whom have been charged, by the way, with those crimes. Right? Oh,
Yeah, at worst, they're charged with property damage and breaking and entering.
correct.
Right? Which, if that's all you got, that's okay, fine. Let's just assume all criminal charges in that instance are legitimate. None of those are insurrection.
Somehow. Even January 6th last week, when a bunch of transurrectionists stormed the Capitol in Nashville to protest trans people committing violence against
Boy, talk
Christian
about not being able to
children?
read the room. Like, Jesus. Okay. But no, I strongly suspect there are more people like me, and the further on this goes, the more people that are going to be like me. And then Alex says, shit, this brought me back to the Trump camp 100%. I think Bill Whittle put it really, really well. I'm going to paraphrase him. In one of his shows, he said, look, I legitimately believe that Ron DeSantis is the more intelligent choice for president by almost every metric. But now I don't care anymore. If you actually put Donald Trump in prison, I will vote for a man behind bars.
Yep.
And I think that sentiment will grow. There's some kind of bizarre argument out there that says, oh, this is going to guarantee Donald Trump wins the primary but loses the general. No, at this point, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I hate anything that even vaguely resembles black pill talk. But if we're going to cross these lines, if we're going to go banana republic, okay, fine. Let's talk about how we mobilize mail-in voting. Let's talk about how we ballot harvest. And yeah, we're going to have some challenges that the left doesn't have, okay? But
honest voters, for example. That's a real challenge for us. It's hard to whoop up enough legitimate conservatives that are willing to commit fraud.
But no, we've tried engaging in good faith debate over and over and over and over and over again, and now if you don't use the pronouns, you're the bigot.
Right.
Like, that's where we're at. If I don't engage in your delusion alongside you, I'm the asshole. Okay, fine. You know what? You don't look like a lady. You look like a dude in a dress. You might even look like a pretty dude in a dress, but you look like a fucking dude in a fucking dress. Okay? And in that vein, yeah, no, sorry. We need to push back and actually engage in some of the same tactics as them. I wish there was some version of rules for conservative radicals, honestly, because all of this has been used against us.
That's interesting.
All of this has been used against us, and we've allowed it, and we've been polite. We've engaged in a boxing match while our opponent is in a street fight, and there ain't no rules in a street fight. We say all the time, politics is a blood sport. Well, it's time to fucking treat it like one, because they're trying to yank this away from all of us. It is obvious that Donald Trump is the front runner for the Republican nominee, and they're trying to take him off the chessboard. And I'm old enough to remember when James Comey came out and said, yeah, Hillary Clinton is guilty AF, but she did not mean to do a guilty, so we're just going to let it slide, even though she's actually guilty.
We're going to go ahead and invent an element of the crime that does not exist in order to vitiate the rest of the charge. Yeah, because intent is not a part of your crimes. It's not an element of... And
ironically, intent is a necessary part of these crimes.
Correct. Right.
Okay,
in order to upscale the charges from something that's not a crime, they're having to read in and presume intent.
Yeah, now, they have to read Donald Trump's mind.
Right. Now, so I want to close on this, because you mentioned Eric Erickson and guys like that. And, let's go back to the 2020 election cycle for a second, when we heard from all the never Trumpers. And I just want to remind you that while it's true that it should terrify you that Joe Biden got any votes at all, what is probably more terrifying is that some of those votes came from people calling themselves Never Trump Republicans. And let me be clear on what that means. A Never Trump Republican is a person who made the conscious decision to commit to the proposition that the safety of our children from medical malpractice, from intentional child abuse, the safety of our children from expanded global warfare, the ability of us to feed our children being diminished by a predictably bad economy. The crimes of the Biden family, which include things that are so disgusting, they'll literally ban us from YouTube for mentioning the crimes. All related to children, by the way. And the list goes on and on and on. The fact is that the Never Trump Republicans said, those things are less important to me than the mere public persona of a president who has delivered the most peace, the first Middle East peace talks, the objectively best economy in living memory. It is more important that that president comport himself more politely than that America enjoys liberty, security, and prosperity. We prefer decorum to liberty, security, and prosperity. That is the position of the Never Trump Republican. They are, like most of our elected Republican officials, spineless, intolerably weak cowards. And I want everybody to remember that going into the voting season.
Yeah, actually, I think that nails it. I'll just say, it's like something that we were talking about in the infamous thread. It's that they're soft. It's that it's been so long since they've had to worry, so many people have had to worry about anything that was actually a real threat.
Right.
Right. There's been no depression. I mean, well, there has been, but then we've used the Fed to pretend like there wasn't. Okay. World War II was a long time ago, and even things like Vietnam and Korea were decades and decades ago. And if you weren't drafted or you didn't know anybody who was drafted, that wasn't something that you worried about. And it was an over there problem. It was not a right here problem. The fact that something could actually go terribly wrong, the fact that Banana Republic bullshit could exist in America, I mean, you might as well try and explain what the color blue is to somebody who's blind. They just have no experience with it. They don't even have a frame of reference with it. So this anger, the fact that it's happening, the fact that they would say, no, it's not that I prefer decorum to freedom. They would probably tell you that decorum is freedom. And that was funny. They would probably tell you that decorum is freedom. And in a lot of cases, if we're all participating the same way, if we're all playing the same game, if we're all going to agree to the rules of a boxing match, well then yeah, decorum is freedom.
Yeah.
But if you're following
I love a
the
good
rules,
boxing match when both players are playing a boxing match.
yeah. but
I mean,
if we're following the rules and you're
if we step in
not,
the ring and you draw down, I will return fire.
anyhow. But yeah, we're way over.
We are. And Twitch guys, y'all are giving me a good chuckle over here. And some of you have actually asked, like, cringy screeching asked, please explain. I'm sorry, brother. I don't know why it is, but the funny Twitch troll guys only ever show up at the end of the live show, and we got shit to do. So, hey, we go live at 07:30 every weekday morning. Please, you trolls on Twitch, come by when we start in the morning. When we start at 7:30 tomorrow morning, come get some.
Yeah, y'all are funny. Come back, please.
Y'all be safe out there. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the Marjorie Taylor Greene screeching Anna Kasparian thing. So y'all be safe. We love you, and we'll see you in the morning.